chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20 for a special Olympic preview episode. You got Jay Hossack of George Mason rocking his freshly pressed USA Volleyball gear. Dan Friend from Greece. Theo Edwards from San Fernando State University. We love it. We just love it. Valley State or CSUN. And Brad Rostratter, he's not in Kauai. That's his backyard. So we're going to hate on him all day, all episode. So... Hey guys, thanks for coming on for summer. I know it's a working time for you guys because you're doing a bunch of stuff. If not, you're taking much needed time with your families, which is incredible. Wanted to start our episode with some recent news, and there's a lot of news, at least from the NCAA Men's D1-2 standpoint. A lot of movement, a lot of coaches' name. We'll start with UMES, which is University of Maryland Eastern Shores, names Anita Brockman their first head coach. Then you have Luke Reynolds, formerly of Charleston, moving to Pepperdine. How about that, Jay?
Pepperdine.
As an associate head coach for Winder. Robert Poole, the former assistant at UC, now named the head coach. I just want to call him the Rock, but Rock Perot, associate head coach now at Penn State from PFW. Donnie Gleason, named the head coach at PFW, who comes from Damon. So Damon names Derek Brisbal as their interim head coach. And then, of course, Manhattan College Jaspers adds men's volleyball, more growth in the game. And then the last piece of news, and I only shout out to him because he's always one of my favorite, the favorite LMU Lincoln Memorial player, Evan Corey, got engaged. Savvy Simo of UCLA Indoor and Beach. So does she take on Mrs. Cajun Crush, or does he come Mr. Savage? So that's what I have. Do you guys have any other news that I may have missed there? Solid.
Covered it all. I think you covered all. I know I'll just mention on a couple of them, congratulations to Luke moving on to Pepperdine. I know that they had expressed some interest in him coming over for a while. He did some kind of part-time stuff for them years ago. And his wife, apparently one of the sweetheart deals of all time, got hired on as an assistant coach for the women's team at Pepperdine. And so part of that deal was bringing him over as an assistant for associate head coach for the men's program. So that's a nice move over there for him. I knew about Rock moving over to Penn State for a little bit. And that's some people may say that's a weird move. You're a head coach of a well-known program, and now you're going to become an assistant coach at another well-known program. It's kind of a lateral or maybe a step down. Rock doesn't see it that way, and I don't think anybody else does. It's a step in a direction that I think for him professionally is a pretty good one. And Donald has done some nice things at Damon, so for him to get the nod to go over to Purdue is a nice move. I'm concerned the interim coach at Damon that just took over is only part-time. I'm hoping it's somewhere down the line that becomes a full-time gig so that Damon can continue the trajectory that they have. And adding Manhattan, that's awesome. That they're going to join the NEC, which is good. And so the NEC is growing. And so we're anxiously awaiting a couple of other teams on the East Coast that have been talking about starting up programs as well. And we'll see where they land conference-wise, but lots of good stuff going on.
Jay, before you move on, did another team move back into the EIVA? I was trying to find that. I thought I saw an announcement there, but I mean,
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart moved back into the EIVA, and we welcome them with open arms. They've obviously been a part of it for a long time. They're stepping up their program, starting to fund it at a little bit of a higher level. Their head coach is full-time, and they have more scholarship money. Their gym is getting renovated. And so Sacred Heart seems to be investing a little bit more in men's volleyball, which is sadly needed at desperate levels at that program forever. They've been really underfunded and not well supported, and now they're starting to get a little bit more of that, and that's good. And their head coach is excited about their future, and we're excited to bring them back in.
Great.
I think, there's two topics for me, and it's not necessarily who moved, but one of the things that is spurning some of these moves is that they're just not paying enough for some of the coaches. And I'm not going to dive into which places are paying which salaries, but like a lot of these head coaches are barely making enough to live, and you got programs that are trying to get off the ground, and it's just some tough situations for some of these coaches. So I think they're looking after their best needs in some of these scenarios. And I think the thing that Penn State brings up is like, when I think UCLA falls in this, there's like 2 or 3 programs that have actual 3 full-time assistants. And so you're going to see these top 4 or 5 programs kind of separate themselves out if they haven't already done it, whether it's the collective that they're using within their programs, whether it's 3 full-time assistants along with a head coach, whatever that might be. It just makes those 3 or 4 programs really harder to catch a little bit. And you see Penn State make a move that says, hey, we're going to add this 3rd full-time coach with experience that's going to push our program. And they had a guy last year, but I just think you're seeing some of these programs move that direction. And if some of these NCAA rules come down in terms of pay for play and roster limits with that pay for play, it'll be interesting to see, do these 4 or 5 programs separate themselves more, and what happens to programs like Mason or Northridge or UC San Diego or a lot of that stuff, which will be some big topics for us down the road, I think, in terms of that and what that looks like. So,
Yeah. Well, with that, some of our coaches have been busy on screen coaching some other USA teams. So I wanted to let them have a chance to give a recap of what they've done this summer and what's coming up. So I believe we'll start with you, Brad. I think you were finished the earliest because Jay's just finished like this last weekend. So
Yeah,
take a shot.
yeah. And right before Orlando and AU's, I was out in Dominican Republic, and I had 2 weeks, along with Taiba Hanif Park, the head coach at the San Diego Mojo, and then Jonathan Charette, formerly the head coach at Long Beach City, and then Jimmy Lundgren, who was a longtime assistant at USD on the women's side. We got to take a group of basically like a college all-star team, with some of the top players from all across the nation in NCAA women's volleyball, down to the Dominican Republic, and we faced 5 different national teams. We faced every team's top national team, which was quite the experience for these collegiate girls, all getting their first senior national team experience. And we even faced Dominican Republic's Olympic team, with 10 of the 12 players that ended up making their Olympic roster. We played them in the gold medal match, and we lost 15-11 in Santo Domingo, where they have like just where Jay was as well. And seeing them support, especially they call it the Reinas del Caribe, out there, which is their women's national team, and just the passion they have for the sport, and how loud it gets in that arena when Dominicans playing. And it's truly special. So seeing these girls who have played in front of, 90,000 people in some of their stadiums, and seeing the difference of playing in front of 9,000 ravenous fans cheering for the Dominican, was really, really cool. So it was pretty awesome for them to push an Olympic team in 5 sets and earn a silver medal. And then on Monday, I'll start up with another group that I'll take to Mexico, and we'll compete in the Women's Pan Am Cup out there starting August 18th. We travel out there August 15th or so. So then I'll have another group of 14 totally different athletes. All will be professionals, either playing in the Love, PVF, or internationally overseas.
Wow, good stuff. Dan, you did some USAV Beach NTDP stuff. What came from that?
yeah, so I've been involved with them. This is my 3rd year with the collegiate national training team. So Gabby Garbado and Cody Linner, who run our beach national team development program, have kept me involved, and it's awesome. So we select about 12 athletes to go out this year. Last couple of years we trained in Chula Vista. This year we trained actually in Hermosa. So Scott Davenport was there as well, and he's in charge of our A2 program. So he was out there a little bit. And April Ross came by, and Nick Lucina was there. So we got certainly some guests that were around, but we trained for 6 or 7 days, and then we competed in a Norseca trial event. And this was to basically, we selected 2 or 3 teams that are going to compete in what's called the WUC Championships, which is the World Beach Championships in Brazil. We'll go to Sao Paulo, Brazil in early September, late August. So fortunate enough to head coach that group, and we'll have 3 teams that go there on the guys' side. And so, yeah, so great opportunity to work. And we've got some true beach guys who grew up playing beach, and then we've identified some guys that are indoor guys that have a little bit of beach experience, and even sometimes bring a guy or two that doesn't have much beach experience at all, and really just trying to foster that environment. You know, you've seen the women's beach game explode because of women's collegiate sand, and I think the guys are just in a tough state. I mean, still trying to navigate players that are, you know, ex-indoor college players that gravitates towards the beach, and so we're trying to continue to find ways to grow that. And there's probably 9 or 10 NAI beach programs, one Division III in Stevens, and so there's a couple JUCOs out in California that sponsor it, and so there is some boys high school in California that's doing a little bit. So we're just continuing to find avenues and environments to foster the growth for beach, because down the road here we won't have any Olympic hopefuls if we're not doing that job of identifying some size and guys that can play. And I think Gabby and Cody and Scott and those guys are all trying to do a great job of doing that stuff. So happy to be a part of it and do a little bit of work and try to identify some indoor guys.
Yep. Good stuff. And then Jay, back
Yeah,
from New York.
I just got back from Dominican Republic as well, as Brad had mentioned before. We were in the Pan Am Cup for the men's side, and the team that we took down have some guys on there that are the next cycle or two hopefuls for the men's senior national team, the top team. And a couple of recent college grads, a couple of guys that are still in college, and went out there, and you know, the hope is obviously to do well, and we finished in second place with a silver medal, losing to Canada in 4. That was pretty tightly contested the entire time. 3 of the 4 sets went in overtime, and unfortunately Canada got us, but you know, along the way, we beat a pretty darn good Cuba team, which was not expected. Cuba's always known for being some pretty big physical players, and you know, our guys just played really, really steady and good volleyball the entire time. We went 5 with Canada. We were up 2-1 against them earlier in the week. They were in our pool, and just didn't have the muster to pull it out in the 5th, but. You know, we learned a lot about these guys. There's some kids with some really good skills. I think a couple of names to think about for the future. Mason Briggs was our starting libero, and you know, I find it real hard pressed to find that he won't be on the senior team in the next cycle go around. Great young man, really solid passer from the serve receive line. Commands the court on defense. Really, really good player. I think a couple other kids to keep in mind.
Jay, did he get best receiver award?
I believe he did, yeah. And well deserved. Well deserved. He handled some bombing serves coming his way the entire time. Another name that people probably recognize is Gabby Garcia. He was our starting opposite. Obviously, you know, transferred over from the Puerto Rican side to the USA side. A big physical opposite. Somebody who's got a cannon for an arm. He's got a great serve. You know, and we're pretty excited about his future with Team USA. Ethan Champlin was another kid that got a significant amount of playing time, who I think has got a bright future. I think he's going overseas, and he's going to learn a lot, and he's going to come back and be even better than he was. But a name that maybe people don't recognize, and I got to give out some love to this kid. He's an EIVA guy, Mike Marshman, middle blocker for St. Francis. Back in the day, was an absolute stud the entire time, and never came off the court the entire tournament. I mean, most of the guys are pretty gassed, and I'm sure he was too, but super steady from blocking wise, super steady attacking wise. He had a couple of matches where his serves were a real deadly weapon, and you know, for somebody who maybe didn't play at a high profile program, and for all you young people out there, you don't have to play at the top name programs in order to get a shot with the national team. And Marshman, you know, proved himself to be quite a versatile weapon for us and has quite a bright future. And so super excited for him, and super excited for the EIVA. They had a couple other guys, Brett Wildman from the EIVA, Timothy McIntosh, a libero from Sacred Heart back in the day, was in that mix. So just a great group of guys. The staff was awesome. Andy Reid was our head coach, and Morty from UCLA was the other assistant along with me. It was just a really, really good, and Jimmy Kim was our tech coordinator. who is moving from UC Irvine and is going to South Carolina. Yeah, that's a move he's
That's
making.
news to me.
That's news to you. I'm
Jimmy,
breaking it
I'm
here.
coming for you.
But no, it was a great experience. Brad could probably attest to this, that the traffic, if you don't plan ahead for it in Santo Domingo, can be a little bit of a nightmare. But the
You
Dominican
don't like the
people,
motorcycle cops on the with
oh,
the whistles?
I call them the lane lice, all the motorcycles that travel in between the traffic getting to the front of the line. Was pretty exciting to watch. But Dominican was a fantastic host. The hotel they put us up at was really nice, and the facility is very good, and they were gracious hosts, and we appreciate everything. It was a great tournament, a lot of fun to be a part of.
Well,
Hey,
Oh, and
Jay,
plus, I got to give my boy Omar Hoyos, who also EIVA guy, played on Puerto Rico, that finished third place. They beat Cuba in the bronze medal match.
that was going to be my question. How was the Gabby versus Puerto Rico intensity when you guys played?
It was definitely noticeable. I don't necessarily know how heated it was. I don't
Right.
think he left there with a lot of upset people. I think they understood the move and why he made it, and I think obviously there was a little jeering through the net here and there, but I don't think overall it was anything too hotly contested. I think it was, they're all friends. They all talk still.
Yeah.
They're all part of it all. So it was all good.
Well, I got to give some love. Lorenzo Rivera was on that team as well. He's the son of Victor Rivera, who was an All-American for us. So he's an incoming freshman. He's already making that roster. So pretty cool for him. So,
And let's give a little love to Theo. He had his boy Dan Wetter in the middle, who came in about midway through the week and ended up being a real stud for us. So lots of good stuff going on. Lots of representation from maybe some programs that people don't expect to have national team players, but super excited for all them.
I'm not going to forget about Nolan Flexen. I got to throw that UCI connection in there since Jimmy sold me out for South Carolina. So I've got to make up for that somehow.
Yeah, the USA Volleyball's got a bright future. There's some good kids in that pipeline that are going to be some headaches for other teams in the future. So kudos to USA Volleyball. Super stoked to be a part of it as always, and look forward to doing it again in the future sometime.
Well, that's a great transition because that means we're going to go into our Olympics preview episode, and a bunch of college coaches taking their stab at what we're seeing on the international level. And at one point or another, all these guys on the screen have come across all our men's national team guys. I'm sure so many events every year, all the development programs, clinics, and recruiting, I'm sure. So I figure got to be a great source for what's coming up here in this Olympics. But before we go into the breakdown, we're going to talk about some former D1 athletes who are on other nations' rosters. We still love them. We're just going to beat them. So simple as that. Just kidding, my friends over there. But we're just proud of you guys. NCAA D1 represent. And I'm telling you, it's great to see, first of all, from Australia, they got two beach players that are from D1 programs. Isaac Carricker of USC and Thomas Hodges of UC Irvine / the formerly Pacific team. Yeah, we poached them because they shut their program down. Still bitter about that, by the way. So, but yeah, we had Tommy for 2 years, and both he and Isaac are representing Australia. And of course, Kevin Tilley, 2-time All-American, 2-time national champion from UC Irvine, playing for the defending gold champions. That would be France, as well as VNL from actually they lost this year, but great representation for D1 schools and D1-2 schools over in the Olympics. So with that, there's a new Olympics format this year. Before there were 2 pools of 6. They're going to 3 pools of 4 with the top 2 advancing, and they're finding the 2 best third place teams to create the rest of that quarterfinal. What are your guys' thoughts on this change of formats, and how does it benefit or does it not benefit the players? Let's start with you, Theo.
I like it. I think it just simplifies things, to be honest with you. When you go to a 14 pool, I think it just makes it much clearer who the top is. And obviously, I think they still run it with the point system in terms of how many sets you win. And something that we talked about early on in our podcast about the potential of us moving to some sort of a points international system. But yeah, I like it. I think you simplify it, go to 4 teams, take the top 2, and then figure out who those best 2 third place teams are, and we move forward and watch things get real interesting.
Yep. Anyone else? Brad, you have any thoughts?
I think the one piece I'm a little bummed about is with the 2 pools of 6. I heard like legendary stories of different international teams and coaches, like they already knew they were in and they were trying to figure out who they wanted to match up with in the quarterfinal. And I don't know how true these are, but it was like, oh yeah, well, they wanted to lose 1 set to a certain team because they knew they wanted to match up against a certain team and didn't match up well against another team. To where I think that'll be gone quite a bit, or it'll be interesting to see how, and I didn't dive into it too deep in terms of how they figure out the seeding of 1, 2, and 3 beyond the points, or if they look at the points and then the set ratio,
Yep.
and then into the points ratio from there. But I think losing a little bit of that kind of ultimate gamesmanship, you know, where are you competing to win this one match, or are you competing to win the entire tournament? I think a little bit of that goes out the window. But obviously, I think ultimately it creates the most competitive volleyball, because you think about even those, you know, those 3-4 matchups when teams are playing, they're going to have to, if you're the 3 seed and you're going to have to beat the pulp out of that 4 seed and get as many points as you can and make sure you're not dropping any sets to them. So that ability to play really good, consistent volleyball over the course of 3 matches is ultimately going to be the difference for not so much those first 2 teams in each pool, but for those 4 3 seeds that come out of each pool in terms of determining who's going to have the most points with their overall record win-loss, and then breaking it down into sets and then total points throughout.
Yep. Jay or Dan, anything to add?
It also does not allow for your team to come out slow. You got to come out of the gate super hot, and France is the best example of that. Apparently, they did not have a very good start at the last Olympics, but could pull it out towards the end, and obviously they won the whole thing. And you know, you look at a couple of the pools. I mean, Pool B is ridiculous with Poland, Italy, Brazil, and Egypt. And those of you that don't think Egypt is very good, Egypt is very good. And that pool is gnarly. But you know, I think I agree with everybody. I think it's a system that requires you to play your best at all times. You know, some of the folkloric stories that Brad talks about, we have all heard about them over the years, and now there is a, you know, when you become part of an international tournament, there's things that you have to sign off on, and one of them is, you know, not fixing anything, you know, not trying to throw a game, not trying to, you know, throw a match because you want a better point ratio, whatever the case is. You have to actually sign off on that, which is kind of funny because that apparently was a thing in the past. But it's going to be an exciting tournament nonetheless, and lots of really, really good teams and well-deserving teams. It's going to be fun.
Yep. Dan?
I agree. I think Brad hit it with some of that. I think I've been a part of some world championships where I've seen teams throw stuff and it affects you. And so I think it does kind of eliminate that a little bit. And we're going to see some great volleyball every single round, because you have to, or otherwise you're not making it to the round of 8. And every point's going to matter, and how people line up and how they match up is going to get really, really important. And I am curious to see kind of the breakdown of the pools and who seeds where. Does one of pool A go here, and does one of pool, and kind of how they came about of that. If is it a strength of schedule of what they feel like the pool was? And so it'll be interesting when we see that info and what that looks like as things kind of finish up from that standpoint. And so, but going to be some great volleyball. So
I'm surprised when you guys mentioned the obvious factor, 5 matches versus playing 3. Are teams better with the rest, or are they better staying in the groove and momentum playing more matches?
yeah, but with the 5, you could feel like you could dog it or control it. So is what would happen. You can't do that now. You've got 3, and you're gonna, hey, we got to get out. We got to be good. And so I think you just see a ramped up intensity maybe of less subs, maybe depending on which team you are, if you're France or somebody. But I think you're going to have, you know, some of the main guys be out there right from the beginning because they have to be.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting piece, and Jay touched on it, is like you look at France last Olympics, they lost to the USA, and they had a different setter, they had a different opposite on the court, and they even had a different outside hitter on the court when they started the Olympics as opposed to when they finished the Olympics with the gold medal around their neck. So does a team have the luxury to do that now with only having 3 matches in pool play? Does a loss like that completely debilitate you, or does it just kind of make your quarterfinal match a lot tougher? It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, and think about 5 matches just to get out of your pool play, and then you got 3 matches on top of that with the quarter, semis, and the finals should you go that far. That's 8 matches in 14 days. It's a lot, and teams had to be a little bit deeper maybe in their bench to help even things out a little bit, give some guys some rest. And did you take that chance? And if you were up big in the beginning of your pool, were you able to maybe take a match or 2 where you could get some guys some rest? Now you've only got 3 matches in pool and then 3 matches in terms of going through the medal rounds. And, now you're looking at guys going, it's go time from day one. And maybe we don't have that opportunity to put guys in for a match and give guys some rest. So there's going to be some roster management for sure going on.
Yeah.
And Rob, as we were talking off the line, our offline, was us being the older team for both the men and the women. The limited matches is probably going to help us a little bit more and getting that little bit more rest for us.
2 days off in between matches.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Brad. I think that's for USA, and we've really worked on our depth. And obviously in VNL, we played a lot of different rosters and did some really, really nice things and got to get some guys some opportunities. But I think the less matches we play, the better it is for USA and our old, not too old, but our old roster.
Older, not old, just older guys. Okay. All right.
Vintage.
You got guys
No,
older than Brad and myself.
Jay, you're vintage. We're just older,
Vintage.
okay, buddy?
Children of the 80s are vintage.
Yes, we are.
Jay, I'm vintage too now. Sorry.
Am I the only one here born in the 60s? Am I the only one? Oh,
Rob, are you?
man.
I think Rob's with you, Jay.
Are you,
I'm
were you born in the
just looking
60s?
up information here. Wow. So on the other side of the coin, well, we'll go to our breakdown. I'm going to add this point in there. Italy is a medal favorite. Their average age, 24.2 years old. So their future's looking good. Versus where we're at right now as far as USA, but 32 versus 24, 2 quads right there.
Luckily, volleyball is a game where the older you get, the better you get. And obviously there's a nexus point for when your body starts to break down physically. And I don't think any of our guys are necessarily at that point. But volleyball is one of those things where the youth don't dominate as much as maybe in some other sports. So, I mean, look at gymnastics. What's the average age in gymnastics? Like 15? It's unreal. It's unreal.
Well, listen, Jay, when you're going upside down, you got to be pretty young.
And you got to be fearless. The rest of us go, if I go upside down, I know what can happen to me, and we just don't do it anymore. So
We'll pass.
Well, let's go to our pool breakdown. And first, I was like, there's 2 pools of death in our breakdown, but I want to hear what you guys have to think. We're going to start with Pool A, which is France, Slovenia, Canada, and Serbia. And pretty phenomenal teams in there. But let's start with Dan. Thoughts on Pool A?
Yeah, well, I think you said it. I mean, the France is in there. They're the favorites. You know what I mean? In terms of just and the depth that they bring and the success that they've had, I think they're going to walk in pretty confident. You know what I mean? In terms of, I like to see what Slovenia could do. I mean, I thought, they had an upset in VNL and then ultimately beating Canada recently. So they're going to feel pretty confident, and they've got some pieces that are pretty good. And I think Serbia, I think they got a tough road a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And so I think they're in a spot where it's like they snuck in at the end a little bit, and they're going to be happy to be there and they're going to compete. But I'm not sure I see them going on to the next round. But Canada might put themselves in a position to bid for one of those 3rd spots. We've seen them play hot. They've got some experience. They've been in a good spot. So, but man, I think every match is going to be awesome to watch.
Yep. Let's go over to Theo.
Yeah, Dan made some really nice points. And, obviously France is the favorite, and it's that team. I don't know that we have a whole lot of questions about that team. We know what they're capable of. Slovenia, I mean, you look at Stern, who might be potentially one of the best pin hitting attackers in the world. And the way that he played in VNL was just absolutely shocking. And not shocking in the sense that you couldn't anticipate him playing like that, but he was unbelievable, and what a joy to watch. So that Slovenia team, I think, is going to be really, really tough to beat. And the set, Ropret, that setter, is really, really special and super talented. So I think they're kind of the dark horse there. Canada has been incredibly inconsistent, especially leading into VNL, but made some really, really nice moves in VNL and had some nice upsets, and obviously took it to us. And we had a little bit of a mixed lineup there, but I think Pool A is going to be a really, really interesting one.
Yep. Jay.
Look forward to the Canada-France match, the Battle Royale in the French-Canadian, French-speaking country. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Listen, France is obviously in a little bit of a pretty good position, being the host country and having that comfort. Brizard is a wonderful setter. I had a pleasure coaching against him years ago and some world championship stuff when he was younger. He was good back then. He's real good right now. Canada, I agree with Theo, a little bit inconsistent at times, but don't count them out. Serbia is probably looking to steal one. I don't know if they're going to be in the top two, but I think my top two in that group are France and Canada. They're going to come out as the top two in that pool. That's my call. But yeah.
And Brad, close it out. Pool A breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's going to get really interesting with France and Slovenia, just because they're two very different teams. France is a little bit more ball control, and they're actually the best passing team from VNL, which take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of teams played some different lineups and different people throughout VNL, but they were really darn good passing the ball. And then you look at teams like Slovenia and teams like Serbia, to where they were both in the top 4 in terms of acing their opponents and scoring real points. So I think Serbia is a team that I agree with these guys. I don't necessarily see them getting first or second. I could see them getting hot from the end line and winning a match, getting hot from the end line and taking some sets off of France or Slovenia, and finding their way into that quarterfinal, and continuing to just kind of rely on their serving throughout. With Slovenia, Theo talked about Cern. He's a hell of a player. But something really interesting with them, they're the best team digging. When they get a dig, turning those points for transition based off the numbers from VNL. So I think that'll be really interesting. But Slovenia's serving versus France's passing is going to be the big determining factor to me in terms of who ends up winning that pool and who comes out atop of Pool A.
Yeah. Well, one thing that has to be considered about France, in my opinion, is they were silver medalists at VNL without Engapeth and Shenenyaze. But how does a team get to the play of that gold medal match and do that much damage out 2 of their, however many top guns they've got? So that
they're
was
French.
Well, and I think Brad hinted on it, right? It's been the key to their success. Their depth is truly special, and they can beat you with multiple lineups and still be one of the best teams in the world. Really not that surprising when you look at who they did it with. Those guys are the real deal.
Yeah.
And listen, when you got some things named after you, let's not forget French dressing, French bread, French toast,
French fries,
French kissing. I mean, come on, you got a romantic thing named after you. That's pretty cool. So
I feel like this is a Talladega Nights moment for you, Jay.
That one lost me there, Jay.
come on, get on board with me. Let's go.
Jay, I love that. Absolutely love that. If you need to fix something, you grab a screwdriver and a French. Yeah. All right. We'll move on.
I don't know.
Well, the other thing I forgot to mention was Canada. Even their own media isn't friendly towards them. They've all said, and it's consistent across the board, they're very inconsistent. So, but I've seen Stephen Noir play. Arthur Schwartz last year at the Pan American Championships, and Eric Lepke, solid team. And I forgot to give love to another former D1 player. Their starting libero, Justin Louis from Stanford, is on that roster. So, and he did a phenomenal job. He's been doing a phenomenal job for the Maple Leafs. So, sorry about that.
Canada has been playing their best volleyball that I've seen them play this summer. So, I mean, right in terms of trending up, you want to be playing well at this time of year. So, out of the quad, if you could pick one year to be good, this is the year you want to be good.
That was going to be my comment. This pool's got two countries, Slovenia and Canada, who really are playing some of their best volleyball over the past couple, 6, 7, 8 years. Do you know what I mean? In terms of that. So I think that's what makes this pool so intriguing is with those two countries.
Well, then you throw in the wild cards because everyone that I've read, at least analyst wise of Serbia, they've said not a very cerebral team. I'm like, wow, that's a knock on them, but they're very volatile and passionate is what I've got from reading it. But everyone knows that they have the potential. And same with Slovenia, they're extremely respected. They've got talent. So, I mean, that pool is an unpredictable pool. But I'd like to say that France, being the host, reigning gold medalists, it's a lot of their guys are back from the previous gold medal. And they had a great finish in VNL. They got momentum, but will it be enough to upset these other teams and the other factors involved? So
French braids, French vanilla.
Oh, God.
And with Serbia, Drazen Lubric was the best server this summer in VNL. So that's a name to keep an eye on when he goes back to the end line. He can win some sets for a team. He was acing the opponent at 16%, which is wild.
Wow.
Speaking from personal experience, my current roommate in Greece is Serbian, so he would say yes, they're very passionate.
Should we have him on for an interview too? Just have him jump on the screen?
No, I think it'll be okay. We'll leave it off.
Well, if he heard what you said about Serbia, he'd be kicked out of the Airbnb.
You might be right. Yeah.
Let's go to Pool B. If we're done Pool A, I think we're good there. Pool B, Poland, Italy, Brazil, and Egypt. Let's start with Dan since he finished off talking our last one about that Pool B.
I was first last time, but I don't mind going first again, just so you know. Do you know what I mean? So, I honestly, I don't know that I knew this stat before we got like the 48-year medal drought for Poland. Like, I am just amazed by that. Do you know what I mean? Because they've had some outstanding teams. So maybe they break through this year. I think extremely talented and coached by a Serbian. I gave some love. Do you know what I mean? So there's
you can stay in
Nikolai,
there now.
Yeah, I can stay now. Do you know what I mean? So and I think it was a good point someone made about Leon, his second cycle kind of being in this group and extremely talented in that department from there. And then we talk about you've got Italy, Brazil, and Egypt. Italy maybe isn't as highly looked at, but I think, like Jay said, I think Egypt wasn't as highly looked at. I think Egypt is going to come in and surprise some teams. I'm excited to watch them compete at this level. I think Brazil is the thing where it's like, I'm used to Brazil dominating for so many years with so many teams, and I'm curious how they look like in these first round or two and how they come out. And one of my favorite players to watch is the setter for Italy, Giannelli. I'm extremely excited to watch him and what he does. So I don't know. I think Poland and Italy come out, and then I don't know. Does Brazil or Egypt grab that third spot between some of the other pools?
All right, let's go over to Jay. Want to do the Pool B?
Brutal pool. First of all, I had the pleasure of coaching against the setter for Italy back in the day when he was on a youth team or junior team, and kid was legit back then, and man, is he really legit now. Obviously, Poland. It's a funky stat because you're right, Dan. Poland's #1 in the world right now, and for them to not have won a medal in however many years that was is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Everybody knows about Leon on the outside, but Kurek is the guy that I think people should be paying attention to, the opposite for Poland. That guy is an absolute hammer. I'm with Dan. Brazil is, for us old school guys, they're traditionally a team that, is always in the hunt every year, hands down. And if you're not paying attention to them, you don't know men's volleyball. But this year might not be that year. Egypt is the team that I think people are going to sleep on, that are not aware, because they're thinking, oh, it's Egypt. It's not a team that we hear about that much. They got some really good players, and they play with a lot of passion as well. I would not be surprised if Egypt doesn't pull one out on somebody in that pool. But I think Poland is a team that's going to come out. If I were a gambling man, I would say that Italy is probably the second team that will come out of that pool. And who knows about Brazil or Egypt? I don't know if they're in the hunt for that third place wild card seed, but yeah, that's a nasty pool.
I think this though could be the pool where a third place team doesn't come out. We talk about 2 third place teams. I think this might be that pool in that sense.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Theo.
Was there supposed to be an easy pool? That's the question that I ask at this point. I you know, you look at this pool B, and between Italy and Poland, who have 2 of the best setters in the world, but also 2 of the most impressive blocking setters in the game. Both the setter from Poland was absolutely electric as a blocker in VNL, especially in the finals, the Final Four teams. He was one of the top blockers there, and then obviously Ginelli is fantastic at the net. And so that's just the crux of what makes these 2 teams operate. And, you know, obviously Leon being in his second cycle of the Olympics and, you know, has been for many, many years, arguably one of the best players in the world. That Poland team, I think, is primed and are absolutely ready. This was a great year for them, I think, you know, as a system. And so now as they kind of start to ramp up, it'll be interesting to see how they finish here. Italy, obviously a favorite and a medal favorite, going to be a dominant team, absolutely a dynamic from top to bottom. I love Italy's libero. I think he is one of the best in the world as well. I think Egypt's probably the weakest in this pool. But like we talked about, I mean, you can't sleep on this team. That team is absolutely capable of beating you. And you know, given the fact that this isn't a 6-team pool, that one loss to Egypt could be the difference in your Olympics. And so obviously Brazil is Brazil, and with Bruno setting that team, I mean, that team is capable of beating anybody in the world. So this pool is going to be absolutely deadly. And I think Dan's right. This could be the third place team that doesn't make it out, and that could be a Brazil, which would be absolutely shocking.
And USA went up 2-0 against Poland just a couple days ago. They were doing a friendly match out there, and pretty packed house in that gym, and they went up 2-0 and lost in 5. But that bodes well for the USA team moving forward. But Poland is loaded top to bottom.
Yep. The setter you're referring to, Grzegorz Tomasz, is back, and definitely a fun one to watch. Brad, thoughts on Pool B?
Yeah, I think we get 2 meddling teams out of this pool would be my my hot take or my prediction.
And we still haven't even talked about USA. Brad, you're off the island now.
No, I said 2. I said 2. But yeah, I think starting, you got Egypt, Brazil. I think that third place matchup is going to be really interesting. And we touched on a little bit with Brazil, but they're not passing. They're actually the worst passing team in VNL that's in the Olympics. But the remarkable piece and a testament to Bruno being one of the best setters in the world is they still sided out at 70%, which is unheard of with how they were passing and how effective they were in reception. But I think ultimately for Brazil, their success is going to depend on their right sides. Their left sides are going to do what they do. Their middles are going to be really, really good. But it'll come down to Darlin and Allen and see who ends up kind of holding them down on the right side and is able to build that connection with Bruno.
So we can make a connection for our listeners and viewers. What is a good side out percentage, and why is that such a great number? Just got to make it connect with people here.
Yeah. So, right, when you pass the ball better, when you pass the ball closer to the net, you side out more frequently, you know, and for example, Poland siding out at 73%, but they're also at a good pass percentage of 44%. Brazil is at a good pass percentage at 38%, which is pretty substantial compared to 44% for Poland. And they're still siding out at 70%. So the 70 to 73% difference, that means Bruno, the Brazilian setter, is doing a great job of getting the balls that are off the net, medium passes, and being able to set his middles, like Flavio or Lucas, from off the net or in some different situations in order to kill the ball. And I think ultimately, if you're siding out at 70% at the international level, you're you're going to be in a pretty darn good spot. And I think that we have 4 teams in the Olympics that are at that point through VNL. So that's where that side out percentage becomes important, because if you can side out consistently, then your team naturally over time is going to get some blocks, going to get some aces, and going to be able to get a dig here or there to turn a point for an out of system kill.
The thing for fans to watch is how far off the net does a team like Brazil stay in system. You know, when you talk about good pass, bad pass, medium pass, you know, obviously when you're 15 feet or so off the net, you're going into a high ball type situation where you're out of system, and now you're just, you know, trying to give a ball to your hitters, your pin hitters, to be able to go up and be physical at the net. It's remarkable that a team like Russia, who is notoriously a high ball setting team when they're just, you know, 10 feet off the net, so to speak, is not in these Olympics. But a team like Brazil, with their setter Bruno, he keeps them in system relatively far off the net. And that's the remarkable part, is that your setter is still able to keep things fast pin to pin, which puts a lot of pressure on the pin blockers on the opposing team, and still can run the middle effectively from that far off. Reminiscent of one Loy Ball, who used to run the middle effectively from 10, 12 feet off the net. And that keeps teams honest. They can't just release and go get somewhere and become big physical blockers.
Yep.
Hey, Brad, you might have it in front of you, but this for our listeners, what is USA passing and what are they citing out at?
Ooh, I don't have that.
Dang
Immediately.
it, Brad!
I'll get it in a bit. I'll get it for Pool C. We're on Pool B.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
We have a format to the show. And
Well, I got
you
that.
can't just go rogue.
Rob was doing some references, and I'm catering to our listeners. They're probably like, "Well, I wonder what USA is." And so
Yeah, that's why we're in Pool C, just for this podcast.
you could
talk about it last.
I'm sorry, I thought you could deliver on demand. I expect a lot of things from you, Brad.
Oh, Brad.
That's right. He's data from Star Trek, just right on the spot right there.
But rounding out Pool B, while we're on the topic, I think we got Poland, Italy, and I'm really excited to see that match. You have Poland, who's the best side out team, the highest kill percentage. They're killing the ball 54% of the time they swing, which is unheard of. And then they also have their second in ace percentage with 6% ace. So they're scoring a lot of points with how they hit the ball and their ability to attack consistently, whether it be from the end line or in offense or in transition. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And seeing that match up with Italy, who has 3 great blockers, 3 great middle blockers, a 4th that didn't even make the Olympic team. That was one of the best blockers in all of VNL. And you pair that up with Micheletto and Gianelli, who are 2 of the best pin blockers in terms of limiting their opponent's ability to kill the ball. And I think really the stage is setting for Micheletto, who's already one of, if not the best players in the world, the Italian left-handed outside hitter, who actually, when he was 14, 15 years old, he was 5'10" and was a libero, and then grew a foot and became a 6'10" outside hitter and one of the best players in the world.
Signed with UCSD in the fall, right? Let me guess that.
Not quite. But yeah, I think the stage is setting for him to really be the best at the Olympics and one of the best volleyball players in the world right now.
Yeah. Well, I give you a breakdown from the probably most shallow side. I'm not about these analytics and strategy and all that. I'm all about speed. Like Top Gun, Tom Cruise, your Goose. I feel the need for speed, and no one has said anything about Wilfredo Leon's serve. It's clocked at, what do I have here? It is at 138 kilometers per hour. Who cares about the metric system? That's 86 miles per hour for us Americans. So 86. Now,
as they say in France, le fast.
I mean, let's put a perspective here. You had the Hawaiian opposite, the Frenchman, our favorite fun, hit an 80 this year, right? Well, 86 miles per hour. I mean, that's very little time to react, and crazy that ball you can get a good platform underneath it with the tail that comes off of it. So,
let's put it into perspective. They understand if you're going 75 on the 405, you are likely to get pulled over, and his serve is 7 miles per hour faster than that.
Well, let's put it in even more terms. Facing a 86 mile an hour serve in volleyball is like facing a 115 mile an hour pitcher. Like that's how fast that thing is coming at you. There's just you're hoping and praying that you're putting your platform in the right spot for that.
Yep. And there's Louis from Hawaii that hit that 80-mile-per-hour one. I think Jacob Pasture hit one this year too, but still got to see those things, and I can't even imagine seeing 86 coming at me. So
And imagine him throwing a choppy in to mix it up a little bit. It's ridiculous.
are we ready for our pool C? I've actually deemed this one the other pool of death, but I think we've got 3 pools of death is what we're coming down to here. So that would be Japan, USA, Argentina, and Germany. We're going to save our breakdown of USA last, unless they're included in your advancing out of pool play, which I think they are, but we want to go into a more detailed breakdown of their personnel. But thoughts, we'll go, since Dan has gone first twice, let's go to Theo.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like you said, it doesn't get any easier. And, I thought, initially, I think we all thought that USA had a pretty nice draw in terms of the pool that they ended up in. And, you look at how things have kind of evolved, especially as VNL has gone on. Japan is playing some really, really great volleyball. And we already know that Germany is a great team and a team that we obviously match up pretty well against. I think we beat that team pretty well, but Argentina is fantastic. I think DeSecco might be one of the best setters in the world, if not the best setter in the world. His deception is absolutely incredible. Their libero, Danani, is probably the best defensive libero in the world and is playing defense at an incredibly high level. They do a great job from a systems perspective. I love the way that they defend the court. Some of the things that they do from a blocking scheme perspective is really, really special. I think this pool is going to be interesting. I think Germany is for sure the 4th place team. But I think after that, it gets really, really interesting. And without going into too much of the USA breakdown, I think this is going to be a tough pool for USA.
Ooh. All right, let's go over to Brad.
Yeah, I think Germany, I think just their side out inconsistency is really going to come up to hurt them. They're siding out at 66%. I just think over time, that's really going to be exploited, especially facing the 3 teams they have in their pool. And then from there, you got Japan, who is playing some of the best volleyball. And again, one of those teams where this squad has really stepped up and has really kind of shown who they are and what they can do and how they can perform. An interesting storyline there is their head coach will be gone after the season. So he won't be back for the next squad with Team Japan. So it's kind of like their last dance, so to speak, with him. And he's done a great job over the last 3 years, really getting them set up. And just with those pins, you got Takahashi, Miyari, who's their backup opposite. And then Ishikawa, they're pretty loaded on the pins across the board. So seeing them really play some elite volleyball, and I think with the Japan setter and then the Argentinian setter, DeCecco, you have 2 of the best undersized setters that really do a great job. And defensively, I think both teams play really good defense around that. Interestingly, with Argentina, they're the 2nd best passing team. Theo mentioned their libero playing really, really good and at a really high level. And then you also add in that they have their middle blocker has been the most efficient middle blocker through the summer so far. Ramos, I think was his name there. So pretty impressive there. And what I think will be really interesting is seeing DeCecco and his ability to run and utilize the middle of the court with them being such an efficient passing team. Seeing that matchup specifically with USA, which we've struggled slowing down balls out of the middle of the court. And then also with Japan, who they've struggled when teams are attacking them out of the middle of the court, is going to be really, really interesting throughout there. So I'm really excited to see where those all kind of line up and really kind of settle down.
Yep. Jay, Pool C.
Yeah, another brutal pool. For those of you that are interested in a little bit of volleyball history, watch Japan from years and years and years ago and how they trained both on the men's and the women's side. Some really cool videos on YouTube about how brutal they used to train, and just YouTube them because they're fun to watch. Japan is the #2 team in the world right now, and we've got a bronze medal at the VNL. Brad mentioned a couple of their pin hitters. Kentaro in the middle is an effective middle at world class level as well. The thing about Japan is that this is their last go around, so to speak, with their coach, and they are the most improved program probably in the last 3 years. And they're very technically sound, and they're going to be a handful for anybody. Argentina, listen, DeCecco is probably my favorite setter to watch in the world. He is so deceptive, but you watch him and he's not your typical fundamentally sound in terms of his mechanics, but he's the most effective at doing what needs to be done to put the perfect set, either getting the matchup or putting up a placement of a ball with tempo and speed and location. He is so fun to watch. He doesn't jump set everything because he doesn't have to. And he causes fits across the net for any of the blockers because he's just so good. Argentina is going to be an absolute nightmare to play. I agree. Germany's probably not going to make it out of this pool. This is just not their quad. Grosjean is a fun opposite to watch. If you want to watch somebody who just goes up and bangs the snot out of the ball. But the question mark will be this pool. The top two teams could be any one of those teams, Japan, USA, Argentina. I think this will be a pool that a third place team will get out of. And that might be necessary for us going into this whole thing. I'm not saying that we're not a favorite. We've obviously got our own players, and I'm sure we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but it's a tough pool. And I think 3 teams are going to come out of this pool, and we'll see what happens from there. But it's fun. It'll be another fun one to watch.
Yep. Dan.
Yeah, the guys covered quite a bit, but I think this key first round match is USA versus Argentina. I know we're going to talk about that, but that carries a lot of weight with this pool, and that's that first round matchup, if I believe. I'm a big fan of Japan, watching them the past couple of years and seeing how they've excelled. I think it will be interesting to see where is Takahashi from the injury. He's been reported back, right, from what I hear, and so
He's back. He's going to be there.
Yeah. So how does that play? I don't know if Japan has quite the depth of some of these other teams we talk about, but if their front group is healthy and good, man, they're going to be tough. Do you know what I mean? And I'm with the guys about Argentina. I think they've got some really nice pieces that are doing some great things. And so that first round matchup with USA becomes pretty important. And so, but for sure, third place team out of this pool is coming out. I think this pool and Pool A will have those 2 third place slots, but and those quarterfinal matchups are going to be key in terms of where this plays out a little bit. So
this is like the setter pool for me. 3 of the top 5 world setters all playing against each other. Between Micah, DeCecco, and the Japanese setter. It's just, I mean, see them play in person is totally different from watching them on screen. All the intricacies of their techniques and the way, as Jay says, slings the ball. It's so fun to watch. They're so smooth, each and every one of them. So, with that, we haven't really talked about USA, but we want to save an entire segment for the USA roster. So I wanted to get thoughts on, or your guys' thoughts on this year's Paris team. So let's go. I don't think, Brad, have you started first anything, or Theo? Brad. We'll go Brad.
Oh, we're doing roster. We're not talking about matchups in the pool play yet.
Sure, if you want. This is where we go. We talked about the pool play. We can go here. We're going to focus USA here.
Okay, sweet. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, and the reason why the USA Argentina really stands out, is I think it was until this summer, it was whenever we hosted VNL in Anaheim, USA hosted Argentina, and it was like the last day of the tournament. It was day 4.
Last year.
It was last year, yeah. And it was like a 19-17 fifth set thriller that USA ended up winning, and it was the most points scored in a VNL match up until this summer. I think it was Netherlands and Slovenia that ended up topping it. But it was just an epic match. And so I thought back to that match, and I was like, I don't remember Argentina really beating the USA much in the past few years. So looking at it, USA is 6-2 against Argentina over the last 3 years of all major international competitions with VNL and World Championships, which obviously bodes really, really well. And on paper, especially right now, Argentina's playing at a really, really high level. And for us on paper, we're not playing at that great of a level, but also we only traveled to 2 weeks of VNL. We kept our main guys home for week 1 to let them rest and get some time training in the gym together. So I think that first matchup for us against Argentina is a really good matchup for us and a proven successful matchup. And like we've mentioned, Pacheco is one of the best setters, if not the best setters in the world. And young setters watch him, but don't try to emulate him because you can't. He's just special. But I think that matchup bodes really well. And I actually think we match up really, really well against Japan on top of that. Just the simplicity that Anderson and Christensen have on the right side blocking against the outside hitters for Japan is a really, really good matchup. Although I do think our left side block, although DeFalco's been making some strides as a blocker, our left side block against the Japan opposites could be an area of weakness for us. That could really end up causing some problems. And I think if I'm Japan, I'm going to run a lot of gap go, having the middles on a lot of gaps and trying to stress that right side blocker to open up some more seams for the outside hitters of Japan. And then also just create a lot of space for the middles to have to read between the middle running a gap and then the quick tempo that they have overhead to both amazing opposites for Japan. But I do like both matchups there. And I think Germany, ultimately, I think we just play more consistent volleyball than Germany on that side of things, and I think, in terms of the pool, I like all 3 matchups that we have, and I'm really excited to kind of see us rise.
Well, that's a great breakdown. I hope Japan wasn't listening, Brad, because they're going to come back to this podcast and get you.
I think we'll be all right.
Let's go over to Dan.
The USA is coming out #1, baby. That's what I'm saying. So I think Brad broke it down pretty good, though. I think good track record against Argentina. I think we match up well with Japan, and I think we match up pretty well against Germany. I think I like the format of this tournament for us. We've talked about this. We've got an older season group that have been there, that know how to play between all the pieces. We've got a seasoned coaching staff. I think we're sitting in a pretty good spot. I know the numbers might not say we're trending upwards on the paper, but I think our group is trending upwards. I think it's evident of what Jay just talked about with the Poland matchup in front of a Poland crowd and how our guys came out and where they're ready to go. So I think we're in a great spot, and I'm excited to see what we can do.
All right, let's go over to Jay.
I agree on all fronts. Nothing to add.
All right, then Theo then.
Yeah, I think what's been really interesting and fun to watch with our USA team is the emergence of Jendrick and Taylor Averill. And I think as you looked at the last Olympic cycle and really what our team has done in VNL over the last 3 or 4 years, we just haven't had a lot of depth in the middle and a lot of consistent depth that could really come in and make a difference. And Smith has been out over the last few matches, and to watch both Jendrick and Averill get in and really start to make a difference has been really nice. I think that Max Holt is playing some of the best volleyball that he's played. It has been really, really consistent for us. And honestly, I think this tournament and this medal rests on the shoulders of Anderson. And it always has before. And he has been a guy that we have been able to rely on in many, what is this, his 4th?
Mm-hmm.
This is his 4th Olympic cycle.
Oh, so, with a Smith, 2 guys that are 4-timers.
So Anderson is a guy who obviously, from an experience perspective, there is no one better. And I think that if he plays to the caliber that we know he's capable of, this team is going to be in great shape. DeFalco obviously is our rock, and Soji has been the guy who's been kind of manning our passing and our reception. I like our chances in this pool. I think that we could easily win it. And it'd be interesting to see where that puts us if we take first.
Well, one thing that I'm really surprised none of you really brought up, but I'm going to throw it your way because I know it's come up on discussion boards, also known as Volley Talk. The outside hitter combos that are going to be out there, because in Tokyo you had TJ Sander and TJ DeFalco. I'm sorry. I'm getting all the names mixed up now. Crab. Might as well throw Crab in there. Why not? Been doing too much beach, but DeFalco and Sander. And this year people have been being, is it going to be Russell, Jashki, and or DeFalco? What 2 of the 3 are going to be on the court? And what, in your eyes, do you see happening? What's going to make that call come the first whistle?
TJ is one of the better outsides in the world. So he's so creative when he swings. I think the starting two are going to be Russell and TJ. Yeah, the thing about Jeske that he brings, he's a good big hitter, but he's got a good serve, receive. He keeps us in system. He's got a good serve himself. So I think he's the first off the bench for that position. And Garrett is one of those guys that kind of just steadies things out. You know, if we need somebody to go in there and maybe not be somebody that people are going to put a lot of pressure on in terms of what they're going to give it to. But I think those three are going to be the ones. And I think it's going to be TJ and Aaron Russell that are the two starters for us.
I agree with Jay. I think those two start. I think it comes down to passing. Brad, do we have the numbers yet?
Yeah, and I actually remember why I didn't put him in is because we like barely passed any balls because of the limited, right? We just have really just 8 matches, week 2 and week 3 of the sample size. And ours gets even smaller because we've been going and utilizing that 4-man serve receive even more with Anderson. So like looking at our volleyball, Shoji's passing he passed 73 balls in VNL, a good pass at 50%. And then the next highest is Garrett Magatia with 64 receptions, 51% good pass. And I think that speaks to Jay. Like I could see him getting subbed in as a serving sub to put a ball in and then pass through the back row to give Russell a break or give DeFalco a break or let them catch their breath and kind of recenter themselves. And then Matt Anderson's passed the next most balls with 57 and 43% good pass, which is still 5% better than what Brazil was at with that 38%. And then DeFalco's right below him at 47 total balls passed and 44% good pass, which is pretty good. One of the big numbers with DeFalco is he's got to limit his aces and like fighting off some aces. And I think that's ultimately why they have found the solution of using Anderson and utilizing him in serve receive to just keep them away from getting points from the end line. And then really Jeske and Russell haven't played much, if at all, in VNL. So getting them playing well together and getting them on the court together. And I don't know if Jay was able to see in Poland who they were able to play, but I think with those 3 outsides and a combination of DeFalco most likely getting the most time on the court because of his ability to attack and his growth as a blocker and his defense and his serve. Then it's Russell and Jeske. How do we prioritize that and how do we maximize them through those 3 matches to get us a top pool? We'll see.
Yeah, if you watch the Poland match, the first 2 games, we had our front guys on there the entire time, and it was really a match of runs. You know, USA would get 3 or 4 points against them, and then all of a sudden they get 3 or 4 points of their own. But we won those first 2 sets with that starting group in there, and then as the third set started to progress, you saw Spera start to take some of those guys out and give some other guys some time. And I think you saw by the end of the match, it was a pretty new group out there. I think Maddie Anderson was the only one that wasn't playing. It didn't come out very much. And Micah Christensen was still setting. But it bodes well for us because we've got a lot of experience. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about, but we've got some real big veterans on this team that have got a lot of Olympic experience. I think there's only 3 new guys on the team with Taylor Averill, Jeff Jendrick, and Micah Ma'a being the only new Olympians, so to speak. Everybody else has got 2, 3, or 4, in a couple of cases, experience in the Olympics. But a veteran team, and there's a lot of pressure on them. You know, they didn't perform maybe at their highest level in the last Olympic go-around, and they're starting to feel that pressure a little bit. But I think we'll rise to that occasion. I think we got the right guys there.
Yeah, I think, Rob, going back to your original question, I agree with these guys. I think that Russell and DeFalco are the starters, and mostly because of experience, right? Like DeFalco is a guy who emotionally is an absolute star, and he's a guy who wants to remain on the court. And so John historically has done a lot to try and help his deficiencies, right? We talked about the 4-man passport formation. We talked about things that he has struggled with. They've done their best to try and keep him on the court because of what he does at the net, the creativity he does offensively, his blocking and his vision is really, really fantastic. Russell is probably one of our better high ball hitters. He's better than DeFalco out of system, but he struggles against the flow serve. And so historically, that has been his weakness. Jeske doesn't really have a whole lot of weaknesses that I've noticed. but he lacks an experience. And there's times out there where he just doesn't show that same confidence that those other two guys have. And, I think to start things off, having Russell and DeFalco, and obviously we know with the limited ability to lose, right? This is a now 14 pool. You got to win early. I think you go with your tried and true and then kind of make your adjustments there. And I think Garrett provides such a great passing opportunity, but very limited offensively. So this team has a lot of really great strengths, and it'll be interesting to see if DeFalco and Russell are the starting two.
Just want to add on creating opportunities. You cannot fail to mention Eric Shoji, who is great all the way around, service-y, defensively, and he runs down balls that just don't seem playable, and it creates another opportunity. Opportunities leads to points. So definitely Eric Shoji is a big part of that mix as well. So anything else?
Just one of my comments is, Shoji is one of the best liberos in the world at one point. Christian is one of the best setters in the world at one point. Mannix is one of the best players in the world at one point. We've got two middles that have been phenomenal ranks among the world. I just think those pieces for us, and we talk about TJ DeFalco maybe playing his best volleyball yet, you know what I mean, in terms of that. So I like where some of these pieces have experience-wise and what they can bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously coming off 2020 and ninth place, this disappointing finish. Can they medal this year? We'll go around the horn.
Yes,
start.
Absolutely. Like,
All right.
I think
There's 2 of 4. Dannery said yes, USA. He said it early, but we want to hear him say it just from Greece. Yes.
From Greece, the birthplace of the Olympics. Yes, we're going to medal.
Rob, I think that's too easy. Asking us, can they medal? We know that this team is capable of medaling. Would you bet on it?
Yes.
Obviously, we don't bet, right? NCAA rules. We don't make financial bets. But would you bet on this team if that was your livelihood? You put your house on it? That's the question I would ask these guys.
I'd put your house on it.
See, there's the answer, Rob. You said you bet somebody else's money on it. I think Theo, you nailed it right on the head. It's not about can this team, it's will this team. And I think this is a very tough Olympic group. And would I be willing to go all in to say that USA is going to medal? It depends on what color medal you're talking about. Do I think USA is going to make it out of their pool? I'd match the pot on that. I think that's a pretty big positive for us that we can do that. You start getting into those medal rounds, and man, oh man, the teams you're going to face and the level of pressure. I think that for me is going to be the sticking point for us. It's not that we don't have the talent. There's no doubt in my mind we have the talent to play at that level. It's the pressure and how we manage it and how our personalities on the team mesh well together to keep ourselves focused and relaxed in moments when we need to take a mental break and kind of decompress, and then ramp up and be ready to perform at the highest levels when the moments count most. That's a tough thing to do. And I know we've got a lot of experience, but my question mark is, can we handle that pressure? And I think we've got some people there that can really help out with that. Andrea Becker is part of that staff, and she's been really good at managing those guys and giving them some tools to work with and manage that pressure. But that's, to me, is going to be where the real rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go back to Dan's point, right? Like, you look at the roster and person for person, we have what it takes to be a gold medal team. We could win this whole thing. You look back at VNL and the way that we played, and obviously multiple lineups, we didn't have an opportunity to play our starting group the whole time. And so what it would be nice, and I think it would make it really easy for everyone on this pod, is that in the event that we were playing gold medal volleyball over the last month, we would be like, yeah, there's no question. Like, we're firing on all cylinders. But we mentioned a lot of teams in this breakdown that are playing their best volleyball, right? Japan on the rise, Slovenia on the rise. There's a lot of really, really talented teams, not to mention France and Italy, right? So can we do it? There's no question. what our team looks like, I could tell you on match one if we're going to be that team. And I think that's the most exciting part is the Olympics. It's really about showing up for your country and representing and playing the best that our United States can play.
Yep.
So the favorites, I looked up some betting website, and Poland's the favorite, France, Italy, and then USA is plus 700, which I don't really know what that means. But so they
You
have.
don't know
I
what
don't
that
think
means.
this bookie. I don't think the bookie's taken into the Poland's drought of 48 years. Just so you know.
48 years of no medals.
But generally speaking, like I think you guys kind of nailed it with the ability for us to play at that level is not a question mark for us with the players that we have, with the talent that we have. I think the question mark becomes is, can we have it together for these next 3 weeks? And can we sustain it over these next 3 weeks? Because there's so much that can go wrong. As you know, I'm sure Jay suffered some adversity, small or large, out in Santo Domingo. There's so much that we will never know about, we'll never hear about, that can go wrong for all 12 of these teams. So there's so much randomness that we can't account for that is going to end up affecting this tournament. And I do think having the experience of guys like David Smith, Matt Anderson, really leading the way on top of so many other guys who have been through multiple Olympics is really going to help to stay steady, stay consistent. They've been in all these different environments. They've seen these different situations. And I think ultimately, we're set up in a great spot to win our pool. And we are the favorites to win our pool, according to this betting website as well. And then on top of that, it's seeing how those quarterfinal matchups end up looking and how that semifinal matchup ends up looking. I think for us, it's really going to be a lot about those matchups and how we shake out, and specifically how they set up Matt Anderson and TJ DeFalco to be two of the best players at the Olympics, like we know they can be. So yeah, I think we're in a great spot to not just medal, but I envision us beating Italy in the gold medal match.
Look at that. Nice.
And then I got Poland, over Slovenia in the bronze medal match.
Whoa!
But I have no clue if it can even end up that way. So I don't really know.
Would you be willing to bet your backyard on that, Brad? That's what I think also to piggyback on that, Brad, and I didn't mean to cut you off if you still have things to talk about, but having Micah Christensen, who in my eyes is one of the top 3 setters in the world, run your offense, I think provides a little bit of confidence for our guys. But obviously we're supporting and hoping and any coach will tell you when you go after something of this magnitude or even a national championship at the collegiate level, you got to have a little luck along the way. Brad touched upon, there's so many variables. There's, you got health, you got wellness, you got all the stuff going on, all the pressures, all the social media, all the time that you're spending trying to focus on it. There's so many things that could not go your way. You need a little luck along the way to help out. But yeah, it's I like our chances if we're playing well at the right moments. That's for sure.
Yep. Well, I got to add this in there because one of the most inspirational social posts I've seen was actually posted by Coach Spra through USA Volleyball. But in the video, I encourage you to go check it out. He says, you will not hear the national anthem during play because that's not the format they allow for at the Olympics. The only time you're going to hear the national anthem is if you get the gold. We're there to hear the national anthem.
Yep.
That's much more detailed and more dramatic in the video, but you should check it out. The mission is set, and I feel like he's got the guys dialed in. They're in a good place. So with that, I believe.
Hey guys, I got to jump off. It was great to see you. Go USA.
Good timing, Dan. Well,
See you, Dan.
All right.
Dan.
Yeah.
Well, with that down to 4, I was going to say goodbye, but Dan cut off too soon. So if there's any other anecdotes you want to drop on or side notes, gentlemen? I'd like to give you this opportunity because I know there's something miss. A lot has happened since the last ball drop for the national championship. So
I got one thing to say. So you've been seeing some of the videos being posted from some of the athletes regarding the cardboard beds and the commissaries and the dining halls and all that stuff. And that's all, I've seen all that stuff firsthand. It's pretty remarkable to see your room is fully cardboard. Take a look at what USA Surfing gets. They are on a boat, like a cruise liner ship in Tahiti. They open the door to their room. Their room is beautiful. It's got real furniture, and they all have their own little deck outside their room with a view of the ocean. They're eating top-notch food from some of the top chefs in the world. USA Surfing is where it's at. And if I was going to be on a team besides USA Volleyball, that's the one I want to be a part of. I'm a little jealous of that one. Their accommodations are pretty nice.
all right, so we
Yeah. I'll add something really quick. When all of us coaches were out at AAUs, we were in Orlando recruiting, the number of people that came up to me and shouted out our podcast and said how much they enjoyed not just obviously the volleyball commentary, but just the ability to sit and listen to us. The support was seriously tremendous. And I just want to thank each and every person who has been listening to this podcast, Rob, for putting this together and giving us the platform to reach out to our community. It seriously, it was shocking. Like, I could not believe the number of people who listen to us on a regular basis, because we love this game. We're passionate about it, but we're just some average dudes who love volleyball and love coaching the young men that we do. So really, really wanted to shout out all the people who have been in support of this podcast.
it happened after we ditched Hunt and brought you and Brad on.
Well, I'm a little nervous because I didn't hear any of that feedback out there. So maybe they're trying to tell me something.
No, and well, honestly, a lot of them said, like, are you guys going to do an Olympic update? Are you going to keep it going through the summer? Like, we want more. And yeah, so Rob, appreciate you doing this. I think we should do a part 2, maybe once the first pools have completed, so that we can see where we're at and reassess.
Agreed.
I'd be down. We'll talk off recording because I've got to weave in some travel there where I'm, got to bring the equipment with me. Brad, anything to add since you're the last, besides you're worried about Theo now?
No, I would just say, like, hey, because I think this time of year and, like, even just watching the broadcast, I think things tend to get more critical when you're watching the Olympics. Just let's support our team. Let's support our guys and let's have their back. And it's not going to go smoothly. It's not going to be perfect. But like we said, we have the talent, we have the people, we have the pieces. Everyone's in place to where I'm excited to see Spera and the crew take on the challenge of hearing that national anthem and bringing home that gold medal. Because I think ultimately for our sport, that's the best. And whether you agree or disagree with lineup choices, roster choices, serving philosophy, who cares? Like, that's our country. Let's go represent. Let's go support. And let's have their back on social media. Let's have their back in everything they're doing. And let's watch them kick some butt. Well
said. I'll just add that we need to do that for USA men's, women's national teams, and the beach teams. There's such a cross section of everyone. We all know each other, so we're on board for all you guys. So, want to thank Dan Friend from Greece. We've got Theo Edwards from Northridge. I imagine that's your office still. The refrigerator disappeared. Actually, it's bigger. It's empty. So, and then Jay's
only
from
water
home,
in there today.
Yeah, Jay's from home off the golf course, and Brad is not in Kauai, but that's his lovely home in La Jolla. So
Oceanside.
Oceanside. Oh, even better. Waves are better there. So I'm Rob. Hey, Olympics start July 27th. Look at your Peacock, NBC, and other feeds, but support our guys and gals on USA Indoor and on beach. Gentlemen, thank you for your time, and look forward to connecting with our next episode. Let's talk as we go off here.
Thanks, Rob.
Go USA.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at The Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.